In order to search for world's greatest questions, we ask ourselves, is water truly wet? Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Dumb Debates. I am your host, Happy Hosa. On the left, we have the defending champion, Delusional Daniel. Please welcome him to the table. Woo! On the right, we have Savage Steven striking back, preparing his rebuttal against Daniel's defense. Yeah, go Steven! So Steven, I have a question for you. Is water wet?
Is Daniel stupid? The answer is yes, obviously, to both questions. Why wouldn't it be wet?
You've heard of this.
Yeah, but anytime anyone brings it up, I automatically assume that they're absolute idiots.
So, is it a yes or no?
Of course water is wet, yes.
Daniel?
No, water isn't wet.
Okay, Daniel, tell me why you think water isn't wet, by all definitions.
Things become wet after it has been touched by water. Water itself is not wet. If you think water is wet, it's like saying air is dry. When the air motions a certain type of object to become dry, then it's dry. But air itself isn't dry. Same, water itself is not wet.
Okay. First off, air is totally either wet or dry. Is fire dry? Is fire hot? Yes, the answer is yes to both.
Fire is not dry. Fire is fire. It is hot. Water may be cold, but it is not wet.
But fire is dry, do you agree?
No, I don't agree.
What the?
Fire can't be wet though.
Yeah, no, it can't be wet.
So it can also not be dry. Can water be dry? No, so it cannot be wet either.
Okay, so there's a tactic in debate where pretty much a tactic of throw so much undisprovable information at your opponent just to overwhelm them because they can't answer everything all at once. And I feel like this is one of those times.
There's also a tactic where you just name a tactic and assume that everybody will agree with that tactic. And I also think this is one of those times.
So you said that fire is dry.
You can't say it's dry. Fire itself is not dry. It's fire.
Okay, how do you define dry?
Fire causes dry.
By removing water from it. So then by that logic, shouldn't water be also wet?
But you cannot remove water from water. It itself exists
Yeah, you can.
on itself. How can you remove water from water? It's just water.
Evaporating stuff?
The evaporated stuff is still water. If you say water is wet, then you have to say that fire is on fire. It's not like house is on fire.
Fire is on fire.
Fire itself is on fire.
Fire is on fire.
If you dip your feet in water, is it wet?
Yes.
If you pour water on water, is it wet?
Yes! Yes!
No!
Because it's the
It's
same
not
thing!
wet! It's just adding water into water.
What? Okay, so suddenly your logic devolves because now all of a sudden we're adding something to water, but now it's not wet.
It's because water itself exists on its own. It cannot add value to itself.
Yes, it can. Okay, so if I get salt water and fresh water, if I pour the salt water into the water, it will get wet because it consists of different things, but it's still essentially the same thing.
Yeah, the added value of it is the salt. The salt has been included into the water. However, if the water itself, we're talking about water itself alone, it cannot add value to it itself on its own.
So then By that logic, if I add a fish, which is mostly water, into water, it doesn't make it wet?
No, fish has other particles that's not water, therefore adding value to the original thing that is water.
But
okay?
salt water
Fish
has other
can be
things.
dried off.
But
Yes, the salt can be wet. That salt can be wet, but water itself cannot be
But
wet.
as a whole, it's called salt water. The half of it is called water.
Listen, if you're gonna just add different things into water, I can't even have a conversation.
Here's what I think. I know I'm a host.
Shut
but-
up, moderator.
Okay, oh my gosh. Okay. Agree with Daniel at this?
Yes,
You.
that's right, Steven.
No, 'cause-
Suck it. Suck it, Steven. Suck a big Steven, Steven.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so why? Tell me your god-awful logic.
Okay, calm down.
Shut up, Daniel! I don't need calming down!
No,
Okay,
Steven,
wait.
I'm right, obviously.
Oh my gosh. Okay, stop. So you guys make your points. Daniel, you think water is not wet. Steven, you think water is wet.
I just think that water is wet.
Okay.
You're wet,
And
Steven.
unlike, oh fuck, I was going to make a joke about that. Screw you, Daniel.